Rain pours in sheets onto the cracked asphalt of a grocery store parking lot in a small American town, blurring the flashing red and blue lights of a patrol cruiser parked aggressively at an angle, its spotlight blinding a figure in a tattered hoodie who stands still beside a worn-out duffel bag. "Move along, sir," barks Police Chief Carl Winslow, a tall, stocky man in a spotless uniform, his tone cold, impatient. "This isn't a shelter, and we don't need loiterers making folks uncomfortable." The man, soaked to the bone but upright and calm, doesn't flinch. His voice is even tired. "I'm waiting for my ride, sir." "Shouldn't be long." The chief steps closer, scowling. "I said, move along. I don't want to ask again." Without waiting for a response, he jabs his finger toward the exit, glancing at the body camera, pinned to his chest as if daring it to catch a hint of resistance. The man slowly lifts his gaze, revealing pale green eyes beneath the brim of a soaked Army veteran cap, his breath visible in the cold mist. The crowd, nearby people loading groceries, sheltering under awnings, pretend not to see. But one teenage boy films on his phone, whispering, "That's not right." The veteran doesn't budge, gripping the strap of his duffel tighter. Not in defiance, but as if it's all that keeps him grounded. "You think wearing a camo cap makes you special," Winslow sneers. "Anyone can buy that off eBay, lightning flashes." The man's name is Samuel Sam Rourke, 42, former Army Ranger and Iraq War veteran, twice deployed recipient of the Bronze Star with Valor and a Purple Heart. His build is lean but hardened with sun-leathered skin and faded tattoos peeking beneath the sleeves of his faded hoodie. His jawline is defined, bearing the unshaven grit of someone who's been living in hardship but not defeat. Once a revered military tactician, Sam now works as a part-time mechanic at a rundown shop outside of town, struggling with PTSD and the quiet battle of re-entering a society that treats its heroes like burdens. Quiet, disciplined, and observant, Sam carries himself with a calm strength that unsettles bullies and bureaucrats alike. And now he stands under the scrutiny of a man drunk on power. Chief Winslow, new to the role but well-connected politically, views any disruption real or perceived as a threat to his image. He doesn't see a veteran. He sees a problem to remove an inconvenience to his carefully manicured authority. I said, Winslow reaches out to grab the duffel. Sam moves first, not violently, but with the swift precision only decades of training can instill. His arm intercepts the chief's hand mid-air, firm, but not forceful, eyes locked. "Don't," Sam says lowly, not as a threat but as a plea. "You don't want to do this." Winslow yanks back, affronted. "That's it. Hands behind your back," he shouts, drawing cuffs. Before Sam can speak backup, sirens howl in the distance. Another cruiser rolls in, but this one stops abruptly. Out steps Captain Elena Morales, state police investigator, mid-50s, sharp-eyed, weathered by years of high-stakes cases and politics. She pauses as she recognizes the man standing calmly beneath the downpour. "Sam," she says, stepping forward. "Sam Rourke." Her tone shifts to disbelief. Sam nods slightly, avoiding her eyes. Elena Winslow looks between them, confused. "You know this guy." Elena walks slowly toward Sam, rain dripping from the brim of her campaign hat. "He's not just any guy," she says firmly. "He's the man who uncovered the Hilburn base trafficking scandal. Saved 20 girls from being smuggled overseas. You remember that, Chief?" Her voice is hard now. Public witnesses look up phones, record. This man's testimony put 3 generals behind bars. He nearly died in the process. Winslow's face drains. That's not possible. He's just standing here like some... What? Elena snaps. like a man waiting for a ride in the rain, minding his business. She turns to Sam. "Why didn't you say something?" Sam shrugs, water running down his face. Didn't see the point. Didn't want trouble. Just wanted to go home. Elena turns to the growing crowd, then to Winslow, whose mouth opens but fails to produce anything useful. "You should know, Chief," she says coldly. Sam Rourke was called out of retirement just last year to assist in a classified operation. He helped expose a supply chain leak that compromised national security. I was there. I signed off on the final report. If he hadn't acted, we'd have lost over 40 operatives overseas. He's more of a patriot than half the brass who salute a flag without knowing what sacrifice smells like. Murmurs ripple through the bystanders. Winslow steps back suddenly, very aware of the camera lens beside his shoulder and the phones aimed squarely at his shame. "I didn't know," he stammers. "You didn't care to ask." Elena replies. That's the difference between power and leadership. Sam finally speaks again. Voice raw. "I'm not looking for thanks, just a little respect. That's all any of us want." A long silence follows. Then a woman from the crowd steps forward, a middle-aged clerk who had hidden behind her cart holding a raincoat in her hand. She gently places it over Sam's shoulders. "Thank you," she says softly, "for everything one by one." Others step forward. A former student of Sam's from the community center he volunteers at. A man whose cousin was stationed with Sam overseas. Stories bubble out of kindness, bravery, quiet, heroism. Winslow says nothing. His badge suddenly feels heavy. His authority thin. Elena steps beside Sam, her voice lowered. "You said you were waiting for a ride." Sam nods. "Yeah, the guy's just late. His car breaks down more than it runs." She smiles faintly. "Get in, I'll give you a lift." As they walk toward her cruiser, Sam turns once eyes, scanning the crowd now. No longer indifferent, but reverent. It's not the attention he wanted, but it's the recognition every veteran deserves. And as the cruiser pulls away into the rain, a hush lingers behind, broken only by one small voice, a child asking his father, "Dad, why did the police yell at that hero?" The father kneels beside his son, glancing at the chief now standing alone in disgrace. Because sometimes, he says, people forget what real strength looks like when it's quiet. The boy watches the car disappear into the mist. I won't forget, and neither will the town. Because on that rainy afternoon a man burdened by silence reminded them all that valor needs no audience, and justice, when it finally arrives, speaks louder than sirens. Weeks pass, and the stormy incident outside the grocery store becomes more than just local gossip. It explodes across state news channels and veteran forums nationwide. The footage, recorded by the teenager, now titled, "Police Chief Disrespects Decorated Veteran. Watch What Happens Next," goes viral. Garnering millions of views, online threads overflow with outrage and admiration. "That man is a hero." One comment reads, "And that chief disgrace to the badge donations flood a community GoFundMe page launched by Elena Morales herself. Not for pity, but to help Sam Rourke restart the life he never asked to pause." Sam, humbled and reluctant, finally agrees to accept the funds only if they go toward a veteran outreach center in the county, insisting, "This isn't just about me. There's 100 more like me." Forgotten fading. The media frenzy forces city officials to launch an internal investigation into Chief Winslow's pattern of behavior. Whispers of similar incidents emerge, unreported altercations, quiet complaints swept under the rug. One by one, his supporters distance themselves. The mayor, once proudly photographed beside him publicly, announces his suspension pending review. But the town's attention shifts toward something more powerful than punishment: hope. Within a month, Sam is offered a position by the state government director of veteran reintegration programs. Elena visits his garage on a crisp autumn morning, finds him elbow-deep in the hood of an old truck. It's not an office job. "Sam," she says, "it's boots on the ground, real change. With your experience, your story, they'll listen." Sam doesn't respond right away. He wipes grease from his hands, eyes scanning the horizon, where early morning sun cuts through orange-tinted clouds. "You really think one man can fix what's broken?" Elena smiles, soft but firm. "No, but I think you can lead others who will." That evening, he visits the local community center, where children paint flags and veterans sip coffee in quiet corners. One man, older in a wheelchair, nods at Sam. "Saw you on TV. You stood tall." Sam chuckles. "Didn't feel that way." The man points at his heart. "You did right here. That's what counts, inspired." Sam agrees to take the position, in his first speech delivered not from behind a podium, but standing in his oil-stained boots at a town hall. He says respect isn't owed because of medals. It's owed because we lived what most people couldn't imagine. Don't thank us with words. Thank us with action, with opportunity, with dignity. The room erupts in applause, not for glory, but for truth. Meanwhile, Chief Winslow is quietly removed from his post, replaced by a woman named Jasmine King, a former Marine Corps sergeant who served with distinction in Afghanistan and later became a reform-focused officer. Her first act: hosting a roundtable with veterans to reimagine community policing. Sitting beside her, Sam Rourke. Not in uniform, not in a suit. Just as he is, real, grounded, earned. Months later, the new Veteran Center opens a sleek but modest building named the Rourke House. On its walls, etched in steel, is a quote: "Not all heroes wear medals. Some carry scars you'll never see." And outside, on the same sidewalk where Sam once stood in the rain, is a bronze plaque. "To every veteran who was told to move along, this is your place to stand tall." Children gather near it for field trips. Young soldiers salute as they pass, and those who once looked through Sam now look up to him. Because one rainy day, a quiet man didn't fight with fists or rage. He stood with history, honor, and unshakable truth, and the world finally stopped to listen. Spring rolls in, quietly painting the trees around the Rourke House with soft green buds and warm golden light. Inside the center, the once hollow halls now hum with life veterans sharing stories over coffee teens, volunteering in job readiness workshops, and local businesses hosting weekly support drives. But at the heart of it all is Sam Rourke. No longer just a name whispered in admiration, but a living symbol of what resilience looks like when dignity is restored. One morning, he walks the center with Captain Elena Morales, both carrying steaming mugs of coffee. "You did all this," she says. "You could have walked away." Sam shakes his head. "I couldn't walk away, even when I tried. Every time someone looked through me, every time I kept quiet, it just grew heavier. I had to put it down somewhere." Just then, a young woman steps into the hallway. She's in uniform, army green sharp posture, face nervous but hopeful. "Mr. Rourke," she asks, "my dad told me about you. He said if I was serious about serving, I needed to meet you first." Sam turns expression softening. "What's your name?" "Private First Class Jordan Hale, sir." "Come in," he says gently. Tell me what's on your mind. As they walk toward his office, the door closes behind them, leaving a corridor alive with chatter and quiet laughter. Outside in the parking lot, a new plaque is being installed beside the flagpole. This one doesn't bear Sam's name, but that of a former homeless vet named Miguel Santos, who once slept behind the same grocery store dumpster, where Sam was told to move along. Today, Miguel leads mental health outreach at the center, his life transformed by one encounter and the chain of dignity it set off. Meanwhile, across town, former Chief Carl Winslow packs boxes from a windowless desk at the Department of Records, a transfer cushioned by his family's connections but shadowed by public scorn. His fall wasn't explosive, just quiet and cold, like the very dismissiveness he once showed to others. No farewell speeches, no ceremony, just a locked file drawer labeled Internal Affairs. Closed in contrast, Sam's days are anything but quiet. He now sits on 3 state advisory boards, pushing for housing guarantees, faster claims for veterans, and trauma-informed police training. His phone rings constantly. Reporters, policymakers, even military brass seeking input. But he remains grounded. Every Thursday at 6 a.m. before the sun rises, Sam still returns to the mechanic shop on the outskirts of town. He fixes engines not for money, but for peace, for the sound of his own breath in silence, for the feeling of something broken being made whole again. One particular Thursday, a black SUV pulls up out steps. A tall man in civilian clothes, crisp but understated gray at the temples. Sharp eyes. He extends a hand. Director Langley. Department of Defense, he says, we're forming a new civilian liaison unit. We need men like you. Advisors who've lived it, not just written it down. Sam eyes him carefully. Why now Langley doesn't flinch because America's been listening to the wrong voices. We're trying to fix that. Sam thinks for a moment, then says quietly, come back next week. After you've talked to everyone here, then we'll talk. The man nods respectfully and leaves. That night, as the sun dips low, Sam stands by the memorial wall at the Rourke house. It's covered with handwritten letters, medals left by family members, folded flags. He traces his fingers along one name. Marcus Tillman, his best friend from Iraq, lost in a mission Sam still dreams about. He whispers, "We made it, brother." And in that moment, for the first time in years, the weight lifts. Not gone, but lighter. Nearby, a school bus unloads a group of 5th graders there to learn about service sacrifice and what it really means to come home. As they file in, one boy stops staring up at Sam. "Are you the man from the video?" he asks. Sam nods one corner of his mouth, lifting into a smile. "I guess I am." The boy tilts his head. "Did it hurt when the cop yelled at you?" Sam kneels to his eye level. "Yeah," he says honestly. "But the important part is, I'm still standing. And now I get to help others stand too." The boy beams. "I want to be like you when I grow up." Sam chuckles. "Then you better start listening more than talking." That's how we change the world. As the sun fades behind the trees, the American flag waves gently above the Rourke house. Golden light catching its folds. Inside, lives are changing. Healing is happening. And at the center of it all stands one man who refused to stay silent, whose quiet strength turned humiliation into justice. Not with fury, but with truth. And in that truth, a town found its heart again. Summer rolls in with heavy sun and soft winds, casting a warm glow across the front lawn of the Rourke house, where dozens gather beneath a makeshift canopy for the center's first annual Day of Honor. an event Sam never intended to be about himself, but which has nonetheless drawn veterans, families, press, and community leaders from across the state. Folding chairs stretch across the grass flanked by small flags planted by schoolchildren, each one bearing the name of a local veteran, living or fallen. There's music playing softly. Acoustic renditions of patriotic songs, not too loud, just enough to carry meaning. Sam Rourke, standing off to the side in a clean but simple shirt, watches silently, hands behind his back, eyes misty. His name is on the program, but he still doesn't feel comfortable being called a keynote. He prefers to listen, to observe, to make room for the stories of others. But when Captain Elena Morales, now recently promoted to Deputy Director of State Public Safety, gently nudges him forward, there's a hush. He steps up to the mic, clearing his throat as the cicadas buzz in the distance. "I wasn't supposed to be here today," he begins. "I mean that in every way you can imagine. Not just because of a rainy afternoon in front of a grocery store, but because after I came home from Iraq, I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd left pieces of myself in places I couldn't return to, and the country I came back to didn't know what to do with me." The audience leans in. Even the children stop fidgeting. "There were days I wanted to disappear." Sam continues, "Not because I didn't love this country, but because I didn't think it had a place for men like me anymore. But something happened. Something small. A voice, a hand, a gesture. Someone said, 'You still matter,' and that was enough to keep going. That's why this place exists, not to glorify war, not to pretend that sacrifice makes us superior, but to remind every single one of us, you still matter." The silence afterward is full and reverent. Then, as the first applause breaks out, it spreads like a wave. People rising to their feet, not just for Sam, but for the truth in his words. After the ceremony, as people gather around tables of lemonade and barbecue, a car pulls up quietly near the edge of the lot. An elderly woman steps out her back, straight, her expression unreadable. Sam turns and freezes when he sees her. "Mrs. Tillman," he says softly. She nods. "I thought it was time." They walk together to the memorial wall. She carries something wrapped in a cloth bundle. Marcuse's last letter to Sam, found only recently among old boxes. She places it in his hands. "He called you his brother," she says, voice cracking. "Said you always had his back. Said if anything happened, he hoped you'd live like both your lives depended on it." Sam doesn't speak. He can't. He simply hugs her a long silent embrace that says more than 1,000 speeches. The sun dips lower, casting golden light on the bronze plaque. In the crowd, a boy who had met Sam months earlier now holds his father's hand tighter. "He's even cooler in real life," he whispers. The father nods. "That's because he's real." As the guests begin to leave and the folding chairs are stacked away, Sam remains by the wall. He reads the letter under the fading sun, words blurring from the tears in his eyes. Heart cracking open, not with pain but with healing. A new chapter waits beyond this day. He knows that the Department of Defense has reached out again. They want him to lead a national task force on veteran homelessness. He hasn't answered yet, but in his pocket is a small notebook full of sketches, ideas, names, people he'd bring with him. Because Sam Rourke has learned the hard way that real change doesn't come from above. It starts where you stand, where you're hurt, where you're seen, where you choose to rebuild. That night, as the center goes dark and quiet, Sam sits alone by the flagpole. He looks up at the stars, hands clasped. "Marcus," he whispers, "I think I'm finally home." And for the first time in years, he sleeps peacefully beneath the sky. He once fought to protect no longer a forgotten soldier, but a living reminder that even broken things given light and time can become monuments of strength. Autumn arrives with a whisper rather than a bang. Amber leaves swirl across the courtyard of the Rourke house, and a soft wind dances through the open windows as veterans share stories in therapy circles. Children read out loud to therapy dogs, and volunteers plant a memorial garden where the old parking lot used to be. Sam Rourke walks slowly down the hallway, not with fatigue, but with reflection, each footstep echoing softly as he passes photographs of faces he once fought beside, trained with, or helped find new life since the center opened. His steps halt at a new frame on the wall, his own picture added without his knowledge. Underneath it, a bronze plate reads, "Courage doesn't end on the battlefield. It begins again every morning after." He stares at it for a long moment, conflicted between discomfort and pride. Then a voice breaks the quiet. "Looks just like you, except less tired." He turns and smiles faintly. "It's Elena Morales, dressed in civilian clothes today." "You sure that's a compliment?" he says. She shrugs. "Take it how you want." Either way, the governor just called. "They've passed the housing initiative. Your proposal's now state law." Sam doesn't speak at first, his breath catching as he turns toward the window. Outside, he watches Miguel Santos lead a small group of struggling vets into transitional housing units behind the center. Each one newly built, clean, and dignified. "Took long enough," Sam murmurs. "You made them listen." Elena says they had no choice. "No," he replies softly. "They had a choice. That's what scares me." She nods, and still you change the odds. A pause. Then she adds D.C. called again. "They want you on a national stage. Senate hearings." Possibly more. Sam exhales slowly. "You think the country's ready for me?" Elena tilts her head. "You're not what they expect. That's exactly why they need you." He says nothing, but inside a quiet decision forms not out of ambition but out of duty. That night, in the quiet office lined with files, dog tags, and folded flags, Sam drafts his acceptance letter, not to chase power, but to carry the voices of those who've been silenced. He writes every word, as if Marcus Tillman were reading beside him. A week later, under the bright lights of a Senate chamber, Sam Rourke stands in his old Army boots suit jacket, wrinkled from the flight hair combed reluctantly, face steady. Before we talk numbers, he tells the senators, "I want you to meet someone." He gestures to the side. A screen lights up showing live footage of the Rourke house where veterans are teaching cooking. Laughing healing. This isn't a photo op. This is what happens when you stop seeing us as statistics and start listening to us as men and women. When we're seen, we rise. When we're supported, we lead cameras, flash, staffers, scribble. But Sam doesn't look at any of them. He speaks directly to the American people. His voice steady. His tone grounded. We were willing to die for this country. The question is, will this country be willing to live up to us? The chamber goes silent. One senator, a former skeptic, leans forward. "Rourke, what exactly do you want from this government?" Sam glances toward the ceiling lights, then answers slowly. "Not charity, not sympathy. I want a system that treats honor like currency, one that pays back its promises. I want every man and woman who wore the uniform to know your fight didn't end at discharge." His testimony echoes across headlines, across political aisles. That very week, 3 long-stalled veteran bills are pushed into emergency review. Sam doesn't celebrate. He returns home quietly, where a new wave of letters wait on his desk. Some from veterans, others from school kids, all echoing a single truth. You made us feel seen. One letter, however, stands out. It's from the young officer who once filmed Sam in the rain all those months ago. Now a recruit in the National Guard. Mr. Rourke, it says, you changed my life. I hope one day I stand for something as much as you stood your ground. Sam folds the letter gently and places it beside Marcus's, the past and future side by side. And on a quiet evening, as the Rourke house glows in the warm light of sunset, Sam walks its grounds listening, not for sirens or orders, but for laughter, for stories for life from a man told to move along. He has become the one people now walk toward. And though his battlefield days are over, his mission has never been clearer. Because some warriors trade rifles for voices, and some victories don't come with medals, but with healing, with justice. With legacy, winter arrives not with fury, but with silence. Snowflakes drifting softly over the roof of the Rourke house, dusting the American flag that waves slowly against a silver sky. Inside, a fire crackles in the main hall as people gather for the annual Veterans Winter Vigil, a tradition Sam Rourke started just last year an evening, where the community lights candles for every soldier who never made it home, and everyone who did but was never truly seen. Sam stands by the window watching the crowd form. Children huddle close to their parents. Elderly veterans grip each other's hands. Nurses, teachers, even former skeptics fill the hall holding candles of their own. Sam isn't wearing a suit or uniform tonight, just a simple sweater and scarf. Old army boots still dusted with snow. On a nearby bench, an empty seat is marked with a folded flag, and on it is written, "Reserved for those who no longer walk among us, but who still lead us forward." Elena Morales approaches quietly, handing him a small candle. "They've asked for you to speak," she says. "Only if you want to," Sam nods, but doesn't move immediately. "It's strange," he murmurs. "The louder this place gets, the more I think about the silence we carried when we came home. The things we never said. The things we didn't know how to say. That's why they listen to you," Elena says. "Because you say what others can't." Sam finally walks to the front, standing before the crowd. His voice is low, steady. "You know, the world often says, 'Thank you for your service,' like it's the end of a conversation, but it's not. For most of us, it was just the beginning of a much harder battle. The one we fought alone, with no uniform, no commands, just memories, ghosts, and a world that moved on without us." People listen, their faces glowing in the candlelight. Sam continues. "But this place, this center exists because one day someone decided not to look away, because justice isn't just about holding the powerful accountable. It's about lifting the forgotten and making sure no one ever feels invisible again." He pauses, eyes flicking toward the entrance where a young man in a wheelchair has just been wheeled in his uniform coat, neatly buttoned, though his left leg is gone. Sam walks down from the stage. Without a word, he kneels beside the man and lights his candle for him. "You're not alone," he whispers. The young man nods, fighting tears. And then, one by one, candles are lifted across the room. Hundreds of small flames flicker against the cold. And outside, more people gather. The vigil spreads beyond the walls of the Rourke house, down the block into the city square, into other towns watching the live stream until the map of America is quietly lit by the people who were once forgotten. Sam returns to his window. He looks to the sky. Snow still falls gently, but something deeper hangs in the air. Peace, dignity. A collective vow, and then a voice speaks from behind him, low, familiar. Looks like you finally built something that lasts. Sam turns. In the doorway stands General Harrow, retired, the man who once mentored him before the mission that cost Marcus Tillman his life. "I didn't think I'd see you here," Sam says. The general nods, eyes misty. "I came to apologize for everything we left behind. For the silence we kept." Sam places a hand on his shoulder. "Then help me break it. We still have time," and together, the old soldier and his former mentor join the crowd. A new chapter begins, not written in commands or battlefield maps, but in policy protection purpose. Days later, Sam receives a sealed letter from the president inviting him to serve as the first national advisor for veteran integrity and reintegration, a cabinet-level role created because of him. He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he walks through the center one last time that evening, touching every name on the memorial wall, nodding to every photo, whispering a promise. In his office under the light of a single desk lamp, Sam Rourke writes his reply. It reads simply, "If you truly want change, don't ask me to represent veterans. Give me the power to protect them." And he signs it not as a hero, not as a politician, but as a man who once stood in the rain with nothing but a bag and his silence, and turned that silence into a movement. The Rourke House now stands as more than a building. It is a national symbol, a story told in classrooms, in films, on stages. And somewhere in the snowy quiet, a little boy who once watched Sam from a crowd walks outside with his own candle, whispering, "Someday I'll build something too." And so it continues. The oath is short, solemn, and quiet, spoken before dawn, in a secure chamber of the Capitol with only a handful of witnesses present. Sam Rourke, wearing the same weathered boots that carried him through war and protest alike, raises his right hand and becomes the first national advisor for veteran integrity and reintegration. No orchestra, no confetti. Just a nod from the president, a firm handshake, and the weight of 18 million veterans on his shoulders. By noon, he's behind a desk that overlooks the National Mall, though he rarely sits. His new office is bare. No portraits, no polished plaques, just a folded flag. Marcus Tillman's last letter under glass and a photo of the Rourke House. Sam knows the title means little if the mission fails. He doesn't plan to fail. Within weeks, he's rewriting federal protocol for veteran medical care, slashing through bureaucratic red tape that once made homeless veterans wait 9 months for shelter. He signs the Tillman Act, named in honor of Marcus, which allocates emergency housing funds to states with the highest displaced veteran populations. When resistance comes, when career politicians grumble about unrealistic timelines, Sam invites them to walk with him through midnight shelters, to hold hands with widows, to look amputee teenagers in the eyes, and explain why help must wait. Few accept. Those who do don't leave the same. But with change comes pushback. Networks start whispering, who gave this soldier so much power? A viral campaign spins him as the unqualified mechanic, turned policymaker. Pundits dig into his past PTSD. The years spent unemployed, the incident in the parking lot. Sam remains unshaken. At a national press conference, he stands before them all, face lit by flashbulbs. "I've worn every label you can throw at me, homeless, broken, angry. And I survived all of them, because veterans don't need your pity. We need your accountability. You want polished. Hire a mannequin. You want truth. You've got me." the room goes silent, and then explodes with applause, with questions with something bigger than either momentum. That winter, Sam returns to the Rourke house under heavy snow and surrounded by security. But inside, everything is still familiar. Miguel Santos meets him at the door, now clean-shaven and suited the new executive director of the center. "It's bigger than we ever imagined," Miguel says. "You made it bigger." Sam replies. In the main hall, a new wall has been installed. The Wall of Echoes, where veterans can leave recorded audio messages for their families for future soldiers, or just to get the weight off their chest. One plays quietly as Sam walks past. If you're hearing this, it means I survived the silence and you can too. In a back classroom, Sam spots a young woman, PFC Jordan Hale, the same woman who once came nervously to his office. She's now in uniform, teaching young recruits how to navigate military life after the war ends. "You told me I'd carry the mission next," she says, standing tall. "I'm ready." Sam nods, pride in his eyes. "Then I know we're in good hands." That night, under the stars outside the center, Sam stands alone again. Not because he's lonely, but because leaders don't always get the luxury of rest. Snow settles on his shoulders. Behind him, children's laughter echoes. Soldiers trade stories beside a fire. And Elena Morales appears once more, this time holding a worn photo. "I found this in an old case file," she says. "Hilburn Base. You and Marcus' first deployment." Sam stares at the image. Two younger men, tired, but alive, unaware of what the future would demand. "He'd be proud," she says. Sam looks up. "I hope so. I still talk to him sometimes." Elena smiles. Maybe now the country is listening too. A week later, Sam stands before Congress once more, not to plead, but to unveil the Rourke Plan, a 10-year roadmap to eliminate veteran homelessness, enforce mandatory mental health screenings, post-deployment, and embed reintegration specialists into every military exit program. As he finishes, a rare thing happens. The entire chamber stands. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Because in that moment there is no party, only truth. And the man who once stood in the rain alone now stands as a storm no one can ignore. And in small towns across America, from Tennessee to Tacoma, from desert outposts to city shelters, men and women begin to whisper the same words. We're not invisible anymore. Sam Rourke's journey is no longer just a story. It is a blueprint, a torch passed from broken silence to roaring purpose. And though his boots still carry the dirt of every battle he's fought, he walks now not alone, but with a nation rising behind him. Spring again. 3 years have passed. The country is different now. Not perfect, not healed, but aware. You see it in small things, in airports where soldiers are no longer just thanked, but offered help. In job fairs, where a quiet man with a service dog is no longer overlooked, but asked to speak in classrooms where history books now include a new name. Samuel Rourke, architect of the Rourke Plan. But for Sam, change has never been about the headlines. It's about what happens when the cameras turn off, about what he hears in the dark rooms of trauma clinics, about the letters that still come. And one letter, this one marked, "Confidential," changes everything. It's from a whistleblower inside the Department of Defense. Inside, grainy photos and redacted memos expose something buried deep. Operation Saltline, a classified Black Ops project from 2007, involving off-book deployments, denied casualties, and one name Sam thought he'd never hear again, Marcus Tillman. The letter doesn't just imply Marcus died in combat, it suggests he was left behind labeled expendable by a private contractor hired through a secret military fund. Sam's world reels. His throat tightens. His hands shake. For 3 years he's honored Marcus's name, built policies in his memory. But now a possibility burns in his chest. He didn't die in combat. He was betrayed. Elena is the first person he tells. In her new role as Deputy Secretary of National Security, she's reluctant to believe it at first until she sees the documents. If this is true, she whispers, it's bigger than any of us ever imagined. Sam nods. Then we take it apart, piece by piece. But there's resistance. Doors close. Files vanish. A senator who once praised Sam suddenly withdraws support. The media quiets down, and beneath the surface a machine begins to turn against him. Late one night, Sam receives a call. A raspy voice. You dig further. Mr. Rourke and what happened to Marcus might happen again to you. Click. Sam stares at the phone, unmoving, then whispers to himself. Then they should have killed me the first time. He reactivates old contacts, men and women once lost in the system now alive, thanks to his reforms. A former intelligence analyst with photographic memory. A hacker who used to live under a bridge in Detroit. A linguist who speaks 6 languages, and once decoded Taliban radio chatter with a pencil stub and a broken radio. Together, they begin pulling threads. One name keeps surfacing. Colton Varick, CEO of a private defense firm called Turnus Global. A man once connected to both the Hilburn base scandal and Operation Saltline untouchable. Uncharged, unapologetic. He built an empire on war, and now sits on the board of 3 federal defense councils. When Sam tries to confront him at a gala in D.C., security blocks him. But Colton just smirks. Still pretending you're more than a mechanic, he sneers. You forget, countries don't run on heroes. They run on profit. Sam doesn't reply. He doesn't need to. He's already wearing a hidden mic. The audio leaks within 24 hours. Headlines explode. Defense mogul accused of war profiteering. Ties to forgotten black op. But it's not enough. The system begins to fight back, and this time it's ruthless. Sam is subpoenaed. His budget frozen. His personal files leaked unfit. They call him mentally unstable. He loses sleep, but not focus. He returns to the Rourke house standing before a crowd of younger vets. They think they can outlast me, he says, voice hoarse. But I survived war. I survived homelessness. I survived being invisible. This is just another hill. Cheers erupt. Meanwhile, Elena uses her post to reopen the case on Operation Saltline. And finally, after months of pressure, a single unsealed document surfaces, Marcus Tillman's final coordinates. But they aren't in Iraq. They're in N'Djamena, Chad, Africa, where Turnus Global once operated a covert base. Sam boards the plane without hesitation. He lands in the blistering sun, stepping into a forgotten compound now rusted and overgrown. What he finds inside shakes him to his core. Not Marcus. Not a grave, but a journal, weathered, blood-stained, signed M.T. Inside, page after page of Marcus's handwriting, details how he was captured and abandoned after a failed extraction left behind not by the enemy, but by contractors under orders to cut losses. The final page reads, If you ever read this, Sam, I knew you'd find me. Even if my body rots under this sun, my story won't. I don't need justice, just truth. That's all we ever fought for. I'll see you again, brother, in peace or in fire. Sam closes the book jaw clenched. The next day, at a global press conference, he presents the journal word for word live with cameras rolling and Colton Varick watching from his penthouse. Congress erupts. Turnus. Global collapses. Arrests are made. And a special war crimes commission is formed, the Tillman Tribunal, with Sam appointed as independent investigator. But even after the cameras go dark, Sam walks alone through the old compound in Chad. The sun is setting blood red on the sand. He stands still, then digs a small hole with his hands, places the journal in it, covers it, stands at attention. No bugles, no flags, just wind. I brought you home, brother, and as the sky darkens and 1,000 stars rise over the desert, Sam Rourke doesn't cry. He salutes, because now, finally, the war is over. 1 month later, Washington, D.C. is boiling with noise. Protesters line the streets outside Capitol Hill, holding placards that read, "Tillman deserved better. Bring them all home and heroes before prophets." The fallout from the Marcus Tillman Journal has shaken the nation's spine. Veterans rally, families cry, networks run the story nightly, politicians scramble to realign, and inside the highest room of federal power, Sam Rourke, now unofficially dubbed the People's General, sits stone-faced before a closed-door tribunal hearing. Across the table, 4 senior senators, a federal prosecutor, a war historian, and a nervous-looking Pentagon official. Behind them, lawyers from the remnants of Turnus Global. Mr. Rourke, one of the senators, begins, her voice clipped. "We're not here to determine guilt. That will be handled in criminal court. We're here to determine how you uncovered this information and whether your actions violated national security." Sam leans forward, voice steady. "If telling the truth is a violation, then your system was never secure to begin with." Silence. The prosecutor stiffens. "Sir, you used unauthorized intelligence, crossed sovereign borders. If the wrong person had found you in Chad, this country could have sparked an international conflict." Sam doesn't flinch. "What I found in Chad was already a conflict. You just wanted it to stay buried." Suddenly, the door opens. Elena Morales enters a classified folder in hand. "Permission to submit Exhibit E," she says, placing it on the table. Inside, undeniable proof that Turnus Global used off-the-books funds to manipulate military extractions, profiting from clean abandonment clauses that paid them more when soldiers were unrecovered. One senator gags. Another weeps. The hearing is no longer about Sam. It becomes a reckoning. That night, the president calls Sam personally. "We're establishing a permanent watchdog office. You'll lead it. No press, no cameras, just oversight." Sam agrees, but on one condition. "You give it Marcus's name, not mine." So the Tillman Office of Veteran Accountability is born. Weeks later, Sam returns to the Rourke House. The world sees him now as an icon, but to the staff and the veterans inside, he's still Sam. Still drinks his coffee black. Still wears the same boots, still fixes the broken elevator panel himself. But he's different. He's heavier with truth. Lighter with clarity. He walks through the halls where kids are now learning history from real heroes, not textbooks. Where a once suicidal former Marine is now teaching yoga and trauma recovery. where walls are lined not just with faces of the fallen, but letters from the living. A young recruit stops him in the hallway. "Sir, why do you keep coming back here?" Sam smiles gently. "Because this is the only place I never have to prove who I am." That weekend, Sam stands alone at Marcus's official gravesite, a memorial now recognized by the Department of Defense after 17 years of silence. He places a hand on the headstone. "We didn't just survive Marcus," he murmurs. "We changed the damn world." Suddenly, a black SUV pulls up. Out steps Colton, Varick, no longer smug now in handcuffs, escorted by federal agents. Their eyes meet across the cemetery. Varick smirks bitterly. "You think you won." Sam walks forward calm as ever. "I didn't win. The truth did, you just finally lost." The agents lead Varick away. Sam turns back to the grave, and in that moment, a breeze rushes through the trees. Leaves scatter. Somewhere behind him, a bugle sounds faintly. Not real, just memory. But Sam hears it all the same. He places a folded letter beside the grave Marcus's final journal page. The last words now inscribed on the new marble. "Even if my body rots under this sun, my story won't." As he walks away, camera crews wait. But Sam passes them by, not stopping. No speeches. No statements. Just a glance into the lens. Strong, silent, undeniable. The story isn't over, because now veterans across the world are standing up. Now everybody is listening, and now, at long last, the nation remembers. As twilight settles over Washington, D.C., the camera slowly rises above the Tillman office of Veteran Accountability, its lights still glowing as night takes hold. Inside, Sam Rourke stands at the window of his modest office overlooking the Capitol. He holds a small metal badge in his hand. Not a weapon, not a medal, but the new insignia of the agency he helped create. Behind him, the walls are lined with letters, portraits, and folded flags. He doesn't speak. He just breathes, calm, fulfilled. The wind outside picks up. He steps out onto the balcony below. A crowd of veterans and civilians alike hold candles in silence, honoring the lives that built this change. Sam raises a hand not to wave, but to salute. And as the screen fades to black, these words appear. Justice doesn't wear a uniform. It walks quietly. Until someone listens. A hero was never lost. He was just waiting to be heard. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Subscribe for more powerful true-to-life stories about honor, justice, and second chances. Every view helps keep these voices alive. Let's make sure no hero is ever forgotten again. Subscribe now, because stories like this deserve to be seen.